So now we're going to move on to talking about assignments. Now, my analogy for assignments is imagine the old school box at the front of the classroom where students need to submit papers. That's all the assignment tool really is in Blackboard. The assignment tool is the place where you put your instructions and information about how the students are going to complete assignment or turn something in, and then also have the space to turn it in. You also usually include this on your syllabus or on a course outline as well, but you can also put that language right on the assignment so that students, when they go to submit, they know exactly what they should be turning in. So what I tell people is this is a virtual box at the front of the classroom. The difference is that the assignment tool lets you turn in papers, PowerPoints, images, links, various other content. So if you need students to turn in an image of themselves or a PDF, they can do that as well. So it's not just turning in the paper in the box, it's turning in pretty much anything that a student would normally do as in like a final project, various drafts, those kind of things, they kind of turn that in. So it's just a digital box in which to upload. The cool thing about this versus the old school box is that the reason that I use the assignment tool for a lot of things is that it keeps track of who has and who hasn't turned things in. So for me, I like the assignment tool, even if I'm asking students to do something not graded but need to turn it in. Say I ask students to turn in their resume if they have one. If they turn in their resume, I can then track who has one and who doesn't. And then I can tailor that kind of conversation to, okay, you have a resume, let's talk about taking your resume and adjusting it. You don't have a resume, let's talk about the steps about making one. So I use the assignment tool as just a means to be able to collect information and to also just track the progress of someone turning something in. Additionally, I'm able to notify students in the grade center if they haven't turned in. I can send out emails to all of those students who have not turned something in by a specific date and time. So the assignment tool is just really a very simple tool that allows you to take things in. In Blackboard, there also is an additional feature that allows for you to check for plagiarism of content, and it's called Safe Assign. Now, some people have heard of a tool called Turnitin. It's the same type of tool, it's just a different company. Safe Assign is owned by Blackboard. So this is why Safe Assign is built into Blackboard, which means that by the act of having the assignment tool, you have a plagiarism check tool. What that means is that you can choose to have an assignment that students are turning in just to turn in, and then you can also attach the plagiarism feature to it. So it's the same place you're going to go whether you're doing a plagiarism assignment with a plagiarism screening attached to it, or you just want them to turn in an image of themselves. Same exact place. Now, what I normally tell people is if you're looking on my screen right now, you're going to see that you have the assignments area, and I have the title of my assignment, and then I have my instructions here. Now, what I normally do, just as kind of heads up advice, I like to be as clear as possible because I know that the moment that the student clicks on this title, it's going to take them in to start to submit the paper. I want the students to have the most detailed information about what is expected of them so that they have a moment to turn back and make sure that they're prepared to turn their paper in. So I usually have the description of what is due, and then I also have in mine, I usually say, keep in mind to check spelling, grammar. This document may be submitted in the following formats. I'm letting them know what is okay. I don't want them to use the text editor. Please use a standard font such as Times New Roman, Helvetica, or Arial, and the font size should be no less than 12 point and 1 inch margins. Sounds old school because that's what we used to have to do, but the funniest thing is I always tell people, faculty used to check with a ruler. That's not the case anymore. I can open a document and see if the student's trying to cheat on the whole page explanation or requirement. If that's a thing for you, I'm just letting you know. That's why I put that language there. So I have these two assignments here. These are just standard paper 1 and paper 2 are standard assignments that students are going to turn in. And then I'm going to go ahead and have my Safe Assign assignment. And I always tell people I usually put someplace that this is going to be a plagiarism check assignment, just so that the students aren't kind of like, what's going on here? I let them know that I do use a plagiarism tool to check for their work. It gives them the ability to know ahead of time, to not even try. that's pretty much why I do that. And then I can have all of my other assignments here. And if you see here, I have recordings. I have people have to submit goals, a variety of different things here. From a student perspective, I'm going to go ahead and click on the assignments link just to show it to you. Students will come into the assignments area. They see the title link. They click on the title link. The title link is going to give them their due date, their points possible. It's going to show them what the rubric is for this particular assignment. If I do that, I'm going to go ahead and quick share. That's my rubric. That one actually is the rubric that I use for discussions, but I wanted to just say that you can see that right when you go to submit your paper. I have my summary here as well, and so I have that available. Now, there are two options for submission, and this is also why I make it very clear that this should be submitted in particular formats. Students can click on the right submission box and then just type their submission in here. Or they can browse on their computer or link it to their Google account. They can go ahead and browse on their computer and upload a paper right there. So I like to just differentiate, please no text submissions. I want you to attach the file. Or if you want text submissions, you would ask them to do that as well. The students will go ahead and browse their computer, and then they can upload the paper right into the class. This will then display in your grade center to let you know that a paper has been turned in. I'm going to go ahead and just cancel out of this one. Same thing, when I go ahead as a student and I click on the plagiarism paper, in this circumstance, I already submitted my paper. If I've submitted my paper will show up, and I will be able to see what my faculty member has graded and my overall match in terms of how much plagiarism has been detected. I'm going to go through this at the end, but I just wanted to kind of show you that this is what happens when someone submits it in. Their paper is displayed to them with your feedback on it, and then you can go ahead and they can see all of your feedback. Additionally, if my assignment is just asking for a text submission, which I actually have that one hidden for some reason, I would be able to come in here and just add the text submission, and my language would say so there. So that's what an assignment looks like from a student perspective, so that they can turn it in. And that's kind of the suggestions of what I normally tell people to, you might want to consider putting on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and exit out now, and I'm going to start to create an assignment. When you're ready to create an assignment in Blackboard, you're going to go ahead and come to the assignments area. You can come under, and what you're going to do is you're in the assignments area, you come to the assessments button. Now, for anybody working with me, we've been hanging out in the build content area. Now, when we're going to start to build assessments, and assessments are anything that are usually one-on-one students are doing, tests, surveys, assignments, those kind of things, you're going to go ahead and click on the assignment tool. Just like the discussion tool, when I click on the assignment tool, it's going to give me my assignment information, my assignment settings window, and now I have to click in here and I have to add my content. I'm going to hold 1 second, move my screen so I can come over here. I'm going to go ahead and find an assignment that I have on my course map here. I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to do this assignment, and I'm just going to call it, this one is, I think, Unit 4, and my title is Build Your Course Structure. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut and paste all of my text in here, and I'm just going to put that in here. So I have all my instructions on how this assignment should be submitted, and I'm all set in terms of my instructions. This is the part where I say it doesn't take that long to be in Blackboard. If you have it already on your course map, you're just kind of cutting and pasting that instruction material, which takes the longest. And then I'm just sitting in Blackboard doing my settings. If I have, say, if I have an exemplar, I want to show a student a really good example of a previously turned in paper from a student, I can attach files. If I want to give them a worksheet so that they can have a guide, some people give them kind of like a just a handout that lets them kind of walk through turning in a paper. If I have guidelines for peer review, if I have guidelines for like a peer assessment of how my paper works, I can attach files that students can download that they're supposed to then turn back in later on. So the browse file area is if I have other additional attachments. Sometimes when people are using the assignment tool, what they want to do is actually have students fill out an actual template. So I can give them the template or the journal entry or the workshop sheet that I want them to fill out. I can give that to them and the students download it, fill it out, and then just turn it back in. Additionally, as I move down, I have due dates that are available to me, and I can go ahead and click on my due date. Again, this will still let students turn papers in, but it will give an indicator if I have missed my deadline, and I can then you as the faculty member can appropriately adjust the score if you have any type of late paper policy. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and put in 10:30 a.m. just arbitrarily. And then I come into my gradings area. And my grading area, just like in my discussion area, I'm going to be asked for my points possible. But if I associate a rubric with this and I select a rubric, what will end up happening is that the grade possible will match whatever points I have on my rubric to my points possible. For this assignment, I'm not going to attach a rubric. I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is worth 100 points. And I'm just going to move on to that. Now, when you continue on, there are a series of pull-down menus that look a little bit differently than Blackboard, but you have submission details, grading options, and display of grades. If you're using the assignment tool just to simply kind of let the students turn something in, you may not have to go through this area. So that's why this area is kind of grayed out and it's collapsed. However, I'm going to explain what each of these areas is. So submission details. If I click on this button, I get an area that says, what type of assignment is this? Is this an individual or group assignment? I have to have groups already established in Blackboard to be able to have a group assignment, but most papers in this case are usually individual. So I'm going to go ahead and click on individual. If I selected group, I would have a window that says choose what group that I want to actually associate with this particular assignment. All my groups, one group, whatever the case might be. Now, the reason that you do this is that when a group submits a paper, everyone in the group gets the same grade. So if one person turns that group paper in and you grade it, everyone will get the same grade initially. However, if you want to go back in and adjust grades, you find out someone did participate more or less, or you want to refine it, you can always go ahead and adjust the grade as the faculty member. You have the ability to do so. So that's kind of just letting you know that you can assign this to groups, the groups turn it in, one in, and then everybody receives the same grade. You can make an adjustment. Kyle, sometimes people ask me, Kyle, how do I, if I'm going to change grades, what do I do there? What I normally tell people is that I might hide that column from the students in the grade center ahead of time, if that's what you want to do. But if it's something where you're giving credit to people, don't worry about hiding it because everyone's going to get that grade. But if you're doing grade adjustment, or if, for example, the paper got its own grade versus participation, then that doesn't matter as well. But that's what individual versus group submission is about. But you have to have the groups created first. Additionally, here you have, and this is, so for group submission, that is not the same as doing peer. So what happens is if you had an assignment and a student turned something in and you made it a group, that meant that student got whatever one person turned in, both people got that same grade for that submission. So you wouldn't necessarily use it for peer assignments in this circumstance. You also have the ability to choose the number of attempts. If you only want one singular attempt, that the students will only get one shot to be able to turn this in. Then what's going to happen is you have multiple or unlimited attempts. If you're doing something where you're turning in drafts, some people choose multiple or unlimited, and that way that allows the students to have one assignment where they keep turning in the draft, and the final grade is based on the final draft or the final paper turned in. So you're able to choose which, so if I choose multiple attempts, it's going to say how many is my maximum, and then what is the grade that gets populated into the grade center and projected to the student. I might say that I want it to be the highest grade or the last graded attempt or an average of all of them. So I get the choice of what grade displays to the students if I want to have multiple attempts. Now, some people choose multiple attempts simply because students sometimes make errors and submit the wrong thing. Rather than having to go into the grade center and clear out that area, some people just allow for 2 attempts and say, if you make a mistake, just go back in and submit the paper again, and then they just take the highest grade, which is going to be the one that you actually will grade. So that's also a reason why people will do multiple attempts. What I do say is that if you're going to grade drafts, so if say they have to turn in 2 drafts and 1 final, versus they're going to keep turning in drafts, and the drafts, the last paper is what gets graded on, and that's your final, that's when you're going to want to use this multiple attempts. If you're doing something where you grade a draft 1, a draft 2, and a final, I would suggest making 3 assignments. And the reason why is managing 3 grades in 1 column in the grade center is incredibly tricky, and is a lot harder, especially for newer faculty. You have to come up with some really creative solutions how to manage draft 1, draft 2, and then the final submission. So if you're doing something where they're turning in multiple drafts and the last one is the one that's getting graded officially, yes, you can do multiple attempts. But if you're doing something where grades are submitted for each draft, I would just suggest creating multiple assignments and having draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, final submission. So, so that's why the attempts is there. Then you have, this is where you turn safe assign on. Very simple. If I walk past this, it's not a plagiarism checked paper. It's just a regular assignment. If I come in here and I select check submission for plagiarism using safe assign, that's going to be one of the moments where the submission will go and be checked by a plagiarism tool. Now, what is Safe Assign? Safe Assign is a tool that goes out and searches the internet and other papers. And I believe right now I'm getting some like specific language about STIC because I only have information from other schools that I'm aware of. But what it does is it checks the internet for any articles, journals, any websites that would have this. And then also it checks for your own submission as well as submissions in your own class. Then what happens is it does not check what we call an institutional or global database. And this is the part that I need to make sure what the definition of institutional is. It's not going to check across other classes in Blackboard. It's just going to check within your own class to make sure about that. So what happens is this is going to automatically set this paper up to be scanned for plagiarism. You have the ability to say to the students, I'm also going to show you your report. Now, this is up to you. Do you want this to be an educational tool for students to realize when they've improperly cited or that they've actually taken large sections of the paper? Or is the plagiarism tool for you to observe and then process out however you're going to process? So that's going to be up to you whether you check or don't check. Then you're going to have exclude submissions from the institutional global databases. My understanding is STIC does not have this feature turned on in Blackboard, but it's up to you if you want to check on it. I'm waiting on information to find out what our policy is about where the papers are being checked from. So I normally actually leave that unchecked just in case, but it's up to you on how you want to select that. I'll have a broadcast notice that goes out once I have a more definitive answer. So I've chosen my individual assignment, I've chosen my multiple attempts, and I also now have my settings for plagiarism because I want this to be a plagiarism checked paper. Then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I have grading options, and my grading options are just for me to decide. Now, bias in grading is a concern for faculty, for some faculty. So what I normally do is I say that enable anonymous grading means that you are checking, you're going to grade the paper, and what is going to happen is that the student's name is going to be removed from Blackboard until you grade the paper. Now, if you ask your students to put their names on their papers or title their papers with their names, you will still see that. But if you ask people to do a text submission or you ask people to submit papers without their names on it, this will allow you to do anonymous or non-biased grading. Now, I do tell people that if you read enough papers, you will start to hear voice and flow and all of those things that are usually associated with one particular person's writing style. So that does not necessarily help in terms of prohibiting bias, but not having their name on it may also help you not associate any type of commentary or feedback to the student based on who your experiences have been. So that's just to let you know that's what anonymous grading is for. You have the choice of when you're going to disable it once all submissions are graded and on a specific date. Now, if students are submitting papers, it's going to go into the grade center and it's going to tell you what your feedback was. What this does is that it keeps the entire paper, this particular part of the assignment, anonymous until a particular date, and then all the students' names will be tied to their papers. So if you're going to use anonymous grading, I usually, choose whatever you want to choose, but I say after all submissions have been graded. And that means that if somebody doesn't turn a paper in, but everything's been turned in, then I can go forth and do that. I can also just do a specific date. So that's just to let you know what anonymous grading is. Delegated grading is only when you have multiple faculty or instructors in a class, and this is because you can go ahead and various different people can have different chunks of the class grade. So if you're in a class and you're co-teaching with someone and you have 40 people, you can do delegated grading, which allows you to break up who grades what students in the class. So that's just to let you know, most people, that's not a feature. For most people. Display of grades, this is just saying how do you want the students to see the grade? By score, by text, by letter, and then secondary score. Secondary score is usually only shown to the faculty member, so this is just for your own benefit. If this assignment is also to be included in the grade calculations, you can go ahead and check this, but if it's an assignment or you're using the assignment tool to just get a submission, you can uncheck that box as well. Then if this is an assignment that you want the students to see under their My Grades area, which is where, where the assignment gets associated, you can check this box or uncheck this box if you don't want the students to see the grades. So that's up to you as well. There is a feature called Show the Median and Average Statistics for this. This will tell the students as you go about grading what the average and median grade is for the student, and it will display it to the students in their My Grades area. I have never had anyone check this box, but it is an option for you, especially if you want to say, I want to tell you this is the performance of the class. This is not an indicator of the severity or hardness of this particular question, depending on how you want to actually, give student feedback to them. So that's going to be display of grades. So all of these features are available to you. And like I said, the one that's been most important to me is the plagiarism tool for this particular demonstration. As always in Blackboard, there's the availability settings. And if you're ready to have this be available, you can go ahead and make this available. Then you can also limit the availability by putting a date and time in this. And I'm just going to go ahead. And I'm actually not going to have that because I just want to go ahead and submit this right away. So that's how I would set up my paper. Those are all my settings to think about what I want to do. What I normally tell people is that when you're teaching an online class, unless there's a very specific reason to not have a particular set of settings, most people are actually choosing the same settings over and over again. The only time that I usually see a really big disparity in settings is going to be when, say, people will use the plagiarism tool not for the drafts, but they will use it for finals. So students might be turning in 3 or 4 drafts, and those won't be plagiarized, checked, and then the final will. But some people choose to use the plagiarism checking feature, safe assign, the entire time. So it really kind of is up to you. So as I said with discussions, this is the longest we ever spend in the assignment tool, usually in the settings area, because you kind of get a sense of what you're going to do and how you're going to put the paper forward. When I'm all set, I'm going to make this available, and I'm just going to go ahead and click on Submit. Now, if I scroll again back to the bottom, this is going to be where my paper is available to my students, and I'm going to be able to have my students submit this already. Now, I do have the ability also, once I look at this, I might want to change, like in this case, I have a formatting kind of issue going on. I can always come back in, and this is the same for discussions. I come to the title link, I click on the downward arrow, and I'm going to get a menu, and the menu says Edit. It's going to take me back to where I can make adjustments to my text. I can make adjustments to my settings. So if I have made an error in any way, I can go ahead and make those adjustments. In this case, I want to go ahead and clear my formatting for this first paragraph. On the very first row of the content editor, the 5th to last button is going to have a little remove formatting button, and all that's going to do is it's going to clear any formatting for me, and I can go ahead and make adjustments to my language. I can move my content around and hit various buttons and make adjustments here. So I realize by doing this, I'm kind of messing some of my settings up. I may have to clean this up a little bit, and I might do that later on. But I can sit here and clean this up, and I can go back in here and submit. And now if I scroll back down, this looks a little bit differently. Or it looks different, and I can go ahead and just leave it as it is. If I want my unit 4 discussion to go above everything, I can just grab the yellow bar on the left-hand side. I get a little plus symbol, and I can go ahead and scroll, and within the page, I can move my assignment to anywhere in my class, or anywhere to the assignments page, excuse me. So I'm going to move it up here, and now it sits here and it says paper 3, and it says unit 4, and it says build your course structure.